Got it.
Welcome to a City Voices interview with Anthony Fidler, who is a spiritual guy and engages in lots of spiritual activities, which he will talk about. And he's had spiritual experiences as well. Spiritual, wow. Hi,
Wow,
Anthony.
yes. Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, well, as we were just saying, yeah, I'm smiling, so that's a good indicator. Yeah, I'm good.
So, Anthony, tell us in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll watch the clock so you don't worry about the time, your whole life
Right.
story.
Okay. Yeah. Um, okay, that's an interesting question, isn't it? I think that's impossible, Dan. So I'll give some kind of so I won't rise to that challenge. I'll give whatever comes out as pointers. Um, and I thought before I speak about myself, um, um, I think it's really important for people to realize that we are all individual human beings. So we have many things in common, and as people, we can learn from others and be inspired from others. I'm saying this for a reason, from different things. At the same time, we're also different, and we have our own different journeys and things to follow. So it's if you hear someone else speak, it's to be inspired by that human journey, but not to make comparisons or say, oh, that's easier for that person, or it's more difficult for me, because this is a response I've had sometimes from a few people. Yeah. So if this goes out in a wider way, I want people to know this, that it's we can be inspired by the possibility. Because if you're asking me about my life, it's about this impossible question. At the moment, you have a psychosis, whatever that is, and then you're doomed for life, and you have to be a mental health patient and take the medication for life, and this is it. And my whole life is about saying, no, that's not true. And that might be challenging a million psychiatrists around the world, and lots of people that have bought into that. But okay, I'm happy for them to have their truth, but my truth isn't that. And if other people want to hear a different voice, then I'm doing my best to be another voice that's giving that alternative way. So in a way, that's my life, Dan, but there's more to it than that. To help out for this short time, I've actually got some notes I found before. I won't read them, it's boring, but they give a quick summary, which I can do quick. So if I think about it, there's stages of a journey, which is what we're talking about here. It's not. It almost is not. It's beyond personal. It's more like an archetypal human journey. So there's early onset, I've called it for me, which is birth was a bit of a mess, maybe, you know, and probably traumas and things, early childhood traumas. University was a bit of anxiety and depression and panic attacks and things. Maybe I had some mild autistic behavior, not knowing what an emotion is. This I was good at mathematics and not people. And then workplace burnout, breakdown, getting tired, trying to keep a front up and pretend that everything's okay. Yeah, so there's stages with this, and then perhaps interesting for me. Tell me if it gets boring and we need to intervene or whatever. But I made a choice. You get to that stage where everything's meltdown. My brain's fried. I can't do my career. I know I can't earn money for very long. Doctor says, "Would you like some antidepressants?" And something in me goes, "No, actually, I'd rather leave my job, go to Asia, and see if I can meditate and find some other kind of healing." So that's probably one of these pointers where you're saying spiritual, Dan. Yeah, that something in me didn't go with the society direction. Yeah, and I was just a computer programmer, but I'd done a bit of, I've been to a few spiritual healing workshops or classes or something. So there was something there which decided, get to that point, and I'm happy to let go of my life and the flat and the car and the girlfriend and look like a good job and go off to India. So there's that first stage, and then it kind of started I call it the early therapeutic journey. So masses of meditation, I was just overdosing, and then masses of Tai Chi in India, and then masses of Tai Chi in China, just living and breathing with people, and trying to work out. I almost felt like this is a floating head, was like computer programmer joke. I was a computer programmer. Floating head moving through space, like levitating, and pretending there's a hologram of a body and grounded, alive human being here. And then in China, I saw these, especially this one Tai Chi master person. I thought, oh my God, maybe I can get a bit of this. But it was like trying to find where my body is. So there's been, there's a lot of work. And when people meet me now, it's not the person I was 20 years ago. So there's this early therapeutic journey, and then that carried on for about 4 years, and then 2001 I was in China, and then we did what we're talking about. So I call it spiritual psychosis. So I've got my own language, yeah, for a good reason, because there's beautiful parts. There was lots of interesting learning things that happened, as well as emotional mess and crazy behavior and all sorts of stuff which is not acceptable in our society. I did it in China. It's not acceptable there either. Yeah. Is this okay? How much detail do you want?
Yeah. Okay, so you were first in India and then you went to China. India was meditation, China was Tai Chi. You said you had some kind of unusual behavior in China that wasn't tolerated there, like it's not tolerated in the UK where you're from. So can you tell us about that?
Okay, if you want to hear it. Yeah, so I mean, it's just what it is. I was doing masses of Tai Chi and Qigong, meditating all day, not eating meat. I was just eating a real light kind of vegetarian diet. I split up with my girlfriend, and this was a really big thing happening for me. So there was China was putting tape across all the internet cafes at the time. I was told that they were going to attack Taiwan, and so everything was absolute perfection to cause destabilization. It's like and I wasn't talking to Western people. I was just doing a quiet life, doing Tai Chi, and at the time I was reading the Bible every day. I was on a Christian phase for a little period. So I'd read the Bible for 3 months, word by word, and really studying this thing, even though I relate more with Chinese Taoist. And then it just something just seemed to go over an edge. So I had this big decision to make. Do I stay longer in China, or do I go back to Europe? I've been away for 2.5 years, and something in my head had read some book from some American guy we might even see this sometime, and it was like a kind of a inner compass thing. I was doing Tai Chi, I think at the time, or Qigong, and I said, you spin this compass between these choices staying in China might have involved a new relationship with a Chinese teacher and whole new life. And I was concerned that my grandparents were getting old and might die and I might not see them. So there was, you know, pulls both directions. And I said, okay, I spin this thing and I say, I choose love. And that seems to be an interesting thing to say inside sometimes. So so this happened, and I chose, okay, I'm going to go home, and I let go of everything that was here. But it built up a lot of tension inside. But as I got on the bus to go back from this teaching town where I've been teaching English, going back to the town I was living, I found that I was crying. And this seemed to be, I thought maybe my grandparent had died, one of them or something. So I immediately emailed home to find out, but it wasn't true. And this seemed to open up from there. Again, you get too much detail done, so it gets too much. But from there, it continued to 10 days of okay, sorting every possession I had to find things almost to purify myself. I went through Christian kind of tests and trying to get kind of Jesus forgiveness at the time. So knocking on God's door. It was a lot of Christian themes at the beginning. Guilt, redemption. I caused problems in the world, God knows, that I don't particularly have. But where there was masses of guilt stuff that was coming, and this carried on for days. So there's plain Jesus walking naked through the streets. Yeah, we don't like this this stuff. Yeah, and walking around like crazy person in the marketplace. All sorts of things. It's off the scale. Yes, in the street screaming, Adoni, full on. It's not a so in this I left all my possessions in a bin bag, and I was walking around with Tai Chi suits and trousers, and I kept one card that felt okay. I kept a passport that was quite sensible. I was going home, so there was a very different mind. Walk around, everything's kind of has information for me. You go in the shop looking for toothpaste, and I'm looking at all the labels, and there's one's go, oh, okay, that's for me. Everything is like magic land and moving through.
What is the difference between a Chinese mental hospital and a UK mental hospital?
Okay, so I don't have a direct comparison because I've not been in a UK mental health hospital. So that's I'm not as an insider, because I mean, I had to go in a Chinese one. I mean, I think we know this from talking before, because at some stage I broke a glass door, which was over the line for the police were keeping me in a hotel, and I had a kind of they entered the hotel, and I was kind of being watched and looked after in a hotel while all this was going on. But I broke a door, which was, and then there's bleeding, and this took them out of their situation. So so I did end up in a Chinese place. The difference, I don't know. I mean, okay, on the outside, it looks like certainly what I experienced in 2001 would look pretty rough on some level if you were just looking here, because I'm taken to some place through the gates, and then I go through into this unknown place. It's like prison sentence, and all the bars and locks and concrete simple toilets and things. I was tied to a bed for the first night and left there, wooden bed with a sort of dirty room with a pile of Chinese people. So there was while they were stitching up this wound in my arm that I created. So this is, I don't know. I mean, on the surface, you know, the environment looked pretty simple, and I'm fed from a bucket by a lady there. But this was the surface. Underneath, actually, they were once we were communicating. My parents flew in from England. They did a mad rescue journey, and they took turns staying with me in the place. And once we got a bit settled, we had a nice relationship with the psychiatrist. I mean, I helped. I was translating, and I was positive once I come down a bit. So I don't know if it was the drugs or my parents coming, more likely. But I was able to tune back into people and reality. And
what about
warm relationships?
the Chinese have a name for white people. It translates into white ghost. And it's like calling a black person the N-word. And did you experience racism against a person of your color in China?
No, the opposite. So the reality, yeah, that maybe is the difference. So I can't say it's general. The initial phase where I'm really in another planet. I'm in some journey of creating universes and feeling like I'm being killed by Chairman Mao. Meeting people in this state is difficult, and so there was no communication and relationship, and it's scary, and they're kind of laughing because that's how Chinese people handle discomfort. But once we got over that, we had a very warm relationship and very kind relationship with the psychiatrist and the doctors helping. So no, I didn't experience anything negative in that kind of sense. Whereas I get a sense with, like I spoke with a friend that was in psychiatric section a week ago, and people speak nicely, but actually there's a very strong power dynamic, and it doesn't sound friendly at all or nice relationships. Whereas I was able to, well, we were negotiating. Chinese medicine is a valid medicine in China, as well as Western medicine. And I was able to negotiate for anxiety herbal medicine. I had risperidone as well, but we talked about risperidone and then switching to herbal medicine. So this was a major difference, that they have this in their culture and they respect this. And they asked me, I was able to influence my treatment. So that is a pretty big difference we've just found, I think.
So
I had a say.
They have a treatment for psychosis with herbs.
This is interesting. In the actual system, they didn't present anything like that. They used tranquilizers and then risperidone for the actual acute phase. So they weren't necessarily very different to a Western hospital here. I've talked to a Chinese medicine doctor at some stage, and he did speak about possible herbs which might help, but they weren't using it if they have it in their culture. I don't know. But in terms of handling so they were willing to use an antipsychotic for the acute phase for 2 weeks, and then switch to herbal medicine to help the body to get over anxiety and settle itself. So that's what they have in China, this negotiation between acute and chronic and where things work. So they'd obviously decided in their case they were willing to use a Western drug just to get someone down, and then switch to other methods to help calm. So that's an interesting reflection, perhaps.
How come a communist country like China has such a largely developed spirituality with Tai Chi and Qigong, and communism is essentially like anti-spiritual, right? Isn't there a contradiction there?
No, there's no contradiction there. There are different stages in time. So these things you're talking about, which I do all the time, the Tai Chi and the Taoist kind of practices and meditations and things, that's from the past. And communism is a political thing which has just come in the 20th century. And there's no connection. But I mean, if you there's different things. So it still exists in the.
Well, I mean, the communists persecuted the Tibetans and their religious practice of Buddhism. So why aren't they persecuting people who practice Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation in their own lands?
It's just they do, Dan. This is just goes into politics. So whatever is a threat. So religion is an organizing force, and if it's going in the direction that the politics wants, then it can be allowed in certain forms. And if it's going in directions that isn't working in the interests of the whole, then it is suppressed. So Qigong is massively suppressed in China because the Falun Gong and things was starting to. I mean, it's a different conversation. I really do know all this, so you can see I have a love for China, which goes beyond. I'm not a tourist, so there was a Chinese Jesus figure in the 1850s or something, who led 1 million people in a kind of a rebellion against the emperor in southern China. And millions of people died in this. So religion has had very powerful impacts in China and in the history. And obviously the politicians now are very aware of their history, and are very careful not to repeat difficult parts of it, hence the different controls. And so, I mean, it's interesting because part of my experience was about things like this, because I became different ways the peace master, and I was busy doing rituals to try and harmonize relations with the Tibetans and the Chinese, to balance things and deal with all this legacies of pain in the as I perceived it, in the Chinese people, and was concerned about stuff that's relevant nowadays in the relations with all. I knew all of the politics. I do know all the politics. So now it's a big topic, you know, the China-Taiwan, China-Japan, South China Sea, relations with India, which was the British Empire stuff before. There's areas that are land swaps that, you know, most people don't care about, but some people do, and they'll fight wars over them, which they did, and the Tibetan stuff. And so I had rituals balancing power, moving money, and trying to heal energies between all these things to soften all this stuff. So this is all part of my experience that was happening.
Were these rituals you conducted in isolation?
They were in private, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And how did was this before being hospitalized in China?
Yeah.
This was before.
Yeah, so this was before. So there was I wasn't. I mean, it was. I mean, it's interesting for me. I mean, I've written about this. This first event, I'd done a whole pile of Vipassana. I'd done about 3 years and masses of retreats, and so there was a lot of internal awareness. But still, I wasn't. I was a newbie in going through this kind of experience, and wasn't internalizing. So I was, you know, acting weird for the people around.
How would you do it differently if you experienced it?
Well, I did do it differently. So because obviously the last thing I want to do is go. I mean, as we'll get through this story, that first event in China ended up first with me in a Chinese psychiatric hospital, and then with my parents going back to England, and then I didn't go. I was an outpatient in the UK with psychiatry on medication, and So he got me into the risperidone for life kind of thing for a year, and that didn't work well for me. I don't know about other people, I won't speak, but for me this was a suicide path that was causing zombified depression and a broken human being and a brain dead zombie. And I wrote about it in some other book for someone. Great experiment. You take a Cambridge graduate, their friends work for Stephen Hawkins and everything else, and move in that circle of things, and then give them medications that is like the lawnmower man scrambling the brain. And this is what happened to me, and of course that would cause a depression. So your job is now to sweep the leaves, and I can't sleep at night. And okay, so this was not good, and I came off the medications because it was going to kill me anyway. I would just kill myself. So I wasn't so concerned about the risk of what might happen if you come off.
So what did happen when you came off in the UK?
In the UK, okay, so we did the rough ride, which is hard to recommend, but it's always good when you don't know, because if you survive, then you're all right. So we followed the doctor's advice, so it wasn't just blind, and halved the medication in the first I just halved the medication from 2 milligrams to 1 milligram. Left that for I think a month, and then halved it again. Yeah, so there was the pluses was that I was able, after a week, I was able to read a book, concentrate, watch a film. My conversation capacity came back massively. I wasn't just a sort of like a aperture for misery, which I could talk about. So something massively changed in functioning, but emotions went haywire. So I do a lot of, the downstairs toilet became this sort of screaming place where I just roar with rage at times. We tried to keep it internalized and not have it happen outside, but there was a lot of emotion coming. I went completely suicidal. Everything was every object I looked at was something to kill myself with, and my mother was like a sort of suicide guard on this, but still I managed to get away at some stage. And there was just so much pain, it was just ridiculous. So I didn't want to kill myself, but there was just so much pain coming up, and I went near a railway line, put my hands about a foot away, and then something decided, I don't know why, I stood up, and I thought, fuck, okay, I need to live with the rest of my life now with some kind of broken zombie or whatever. So coming off was pretty rough, Dan. Yeah, if you were choosing a ride, that was not something that you'd recommend.
What did you say to yourself that kept you from killing yourself?
Well, I didn't say anything. I mean, I talked about it afterwards with a vicar in the church, because I was going to a church at the time, and I mean, I'd already been through the things, like we had synchronicity things. So while I was considering it, I'd been watching something on TV, because I watched a few of these my life was daytime TV soaps and things, and I watched Quincy, I think it was an American kind of hospital detective thing, and there was one of these stories was about dealing with a family suicide where the son had killed himself, and then I saw all the consequences with the family and all the pain and everything. So I'd been through that, and I really didn't want to cause pain to others. So that was stopping me, but the pain got so much inside that it really went beyond that. So at the actual time in the end, maybe there was fear of not killing myself and just messing myself up and causing more suffering. I don't know.
There's a book. There's a book about psychic pain called "The Body Keeps the Score." Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
Oh, you read that? So what was happening in your this pain? Was it was bodily, it was psychic, it was mental, it was emotional? Can you tell us about the pain?
I mean, it's not it. Now I can talk about pain in myself because it's feeling. Yeah. At the time, everything was just numb and not related. So I was just experiencing it as a kind of a abstract, emotional, mental pain. And my body didn't digest food properly. It didn't enjoy anything. There was no capacity for any kind of settling or good feeling. It was just in a kind of state of agitation, which was there. I wouldn't sleep at night. The only comfort was lying on the sofa for a while, but that was like a kind of a held kind of lower level of distress, which was or agitation, which was there. So there wasn't. So the body is uncomfortable, and my eyes look weird looking in the mirror. Yeah, this is not a normal state. But I wasn't focused on physical pain. It was an abstract emotional pain of which I mean, I had all my mindfulness stuff that was helping me deal with behavior. Yeah, I was managing. I was self-aware a lot, and dealing with it. That's how I survived, because I was managing behaviors and aware, but I wasn't able to soften this abstract pain in thing, which was was something unbearable.
Did you try meditating in that state or doing Tai Chi and Qigong?
No, even though I'd done all this meditation and Tai Chi before, there was a sense of bodily disconnection, and I didn't feel able to. I'd think. I mean, even now, if I think about my hands, and same before, okay, the instant there's aliveness and energy coming. This time on the medication, there was nothing. It was kind of dead, and it felt disconnected. And I couldn't, even though I'd done about 15 10-day silent retreats before this, I couldn't cope with time on my own. So this has influenced my work later, Dan, because I'm aware of this. I find it really difficult to have showers or go in the bath, because just to have time on my own without distraction, contacting with the inner reality coming at me, was almost too much to bear. And having water going down was bringing up emotion and feeling, and it was really difficult. And so I couldn't meditate at the time. No, that wasn't there's no, meditation is to come home to a comfortable place inside. This was the last thing. It was a comfortable place inside. This was a nightmare place. Yeah. So I'm aware of all this because I'm creating paths for people to do exactly what we're saying now. Yeah. So that's what I'm teaching, to find ways to help people, given I know what it was like for me on worst level to go in and touch.
So what would you recommend for someone who's in a nightmare place?
I mean, in terms of it depends on the thing. If I'm running a group and people coming into it, then that's one kind of thing. I've just been doing it in Italy. Yeah, I'm using simple ways, because we have a body, and a body has a nervous system, a mammal nervous system. And we get all excited about all weird states and seeing stuff and can't communicate and different things and label things. But in the end, this is a human body. Yeah, it's not different to any other human body. There may be little changes in the brain or different things, but in the end, You need to help the body to relax, big thing, to relate to the ground, to feel a center, for the mind to quieten and go into and just come into the present, not think about future and past and future and all the stuff, to get that, shut it down. Yeah, get the body to feel the ground, to feel its center, the heart to soften a bit and start to relate, to relate with other people, to feel safe. So these very basic needs, same as if we were working with a traumatized animal on a bodily level. And then to have a safe group, so not to do this on your own, because this is, some of this stuff is just too difficult generally for people to relate to come into yourself on your own. So to have a holding group, and then it's possible to and then I'll use practices which are to release emotions. Yeah, the body has its own capacity.
So you offer these groups and you do it on Zoom for anyone around the world, right?
No, I've stopped this, Dan, because it's one-to-one. It's been interesting doing that. Yeah, so there's been some amazing things where some people who might have gone to hospital have not gone to hospital. So one-to-one with a strong resonance, it's been possible to do some amazing stuff on Zoom, and so that is interesting. Groups, I decided I wasn't so keen on, because it's so hard to relate to everything that's going on and hold it with different people. But with a one-to-one like we're doing now, you can get a strong resonance, and my body can understand it and hold. So this is impressive, but it's so there's something interesting, but still, we are bodies. It's better to be in a physical space together. This is, is a reality. So I've done things to help with as I can. I'm talking to people over Zoom at times, and yes, I can do a lot with this. But you want to touch in the end, yeah. And this is to come down. So I teach about touch. And I can touch through the screen. I'm touching now people with my words or my emotions, yeah, and things. But in the end, and presence. But in the end, all this stuff we call mental health is energy is retreated up into the head or beyond, and needs to come down and settle. The body needs to feel safe. This is a lot about human stuff, and so we've done a sort of cozy weekend, just doing personal movement and qigong and flowing, and then partner work. And this is what I do.
So you do in-person groups,
Yeah,
where there's touch involved in addition to everything else.
yeah. And Katsugun is like crazy, releasing things or movement that's there. Everyone's so obsessed with this head. Oh my God, you Western society. Have you not noticed that there is more to a human being than just this? So the body has masses of intelligence, mainly in the center. So it's Eastern culture. Chinese and Japanese have a lot of awareness of this, even more than India. And this has intelligence. It doesn't want to be unhappy. It doesn't want to have rubbish inside. And it can move and release emotions. And so there's ways to work which there was a good little bit in some movie, Crazy Wise, and no one, I've said it a few times, no one seemed to notice that there was some young American guy that was really having a hard time with his inner voices and ended up living in a car, and it sounded a nightmare. So it really hurt to watch it. And the only positive bit was the end part, because it was a terrible journey. But he just said he'd managed to get back home, live with his dad, and had done some emotional work, screaming and doing stuff. And the voices had quietened down. And I thought, well, you actually said a lot in that, which didn't seem to get picked up. That if you do emotional release type practice, I did holotropic breath work. So I used that as well as my Japanese Seiki and Japanese practices. I used environments to intentionally go into a psychosis kind of event, altered state, to work through material, to have journeys. I redid my trauma tied to a bed in China and screamed, Anthony! In the event 8 years later, absolutely full on.
Now, Adoni or Adonai, that's the name of God in the Judeo-Christian, right?
Oh, I don't know. No. So in this case, Andoni is my Chinese name. So
oh, interesting.
So I'm Anthony, and but you can see how identified I was with China, because on my death moment, where I'm trying to leave my body and just die, I'm screaming out my Chinese name, not my English name. Yeah. So I was both Andoni and Andoni, and this was something in my identity.
So you've been through psychosis, psychiatry, and spiritual emergence. Huge journey spanning huge tracts of land around the earth. And what superpowers have you developed that are unusual in a human being of the Western world?
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm really quite impressed with myself. That even just recently, I don't want to go into details too much, but I mean, just recently there were some seriously testing kind of relationship situations or things which would have pushed buttons galore. I've been joking. I was doing the Buddha test. You know, you read in the stories of the Buddha, and the devil came to him and he's challenging him for his ground, and the probably the woman came to him, whatever, and you know, he's famous for saying that, God, if the woman's sexual energy was a little bit stronger, he'd never made it. So it was pretty testing. This is a Buddha quote, yeah. And I've had a bit of this kind of mega testing recently, and managed to stay present, to stay compassionate with the people, to recognize their own suffering, even if it's causing me suffering, and to detach from my own attachments and emotions to the people, and turn the situation into a positive feeling, even though everything is pushing it towards negative, and then continue rolling on and not be holding on to misery from this, and to have very happy moments straight afterwards, and the life continues in a beautiful way. So I'd say the talent is to navigate through life, whether it's heaven or hell, and keep harmonizing things to something beautiful. I think this is an amazing superpower, and I don't take credit for it. I keep praying, and may I not be filled with ego, and may I stay grounded and centered and not inflated, and keep serving the universe in some way.
Anthony, are you celibate?
No, I'm not celibate. No.
Okay, because you mentioned the big challenge from the Buddha, the quote that if that feminine energy was more just a little more potent, I would have failed. The Buddha said, right? Yeah,
but it's more in case of. I don't think it matters in terms of celibate or not celibate. It's the real interest there is attachment. Yeah. So whether you're having a relationship or no relationship, that doesn't matter. The attachment pulls you out of your inner truth. And if the situations in either sense, so either situation can be just as pulling. And the thing is whether you can stay connected to kind of inner heart. Yeah.
What's an easy test one can do to know if one is attached to someone or something?
I don't know. I think you take it away.
Ah, and if there's tremendous pain when it's taken away, does that mean that's the only way to...
then you're probably attached. Yes.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Whereas,
then how do you navigate that pain of after the attachment is removed?
so um, so I kind of use the metaphor of the monk's bowl. You know, we're not monks, most people, but actually all humans live with the monk's bowl. Yeah, and life puts things in, we get something nice, and life will take it out. And as much as we delude ourselves, we don't have control to stop that. Our life itself will be taken away out of the bowl at some stage, and we will lose the whole lot. So this is the human experience. And so one level is philosophical, understanding this is the reality, this is the deal. Yeah, and everything else, all the insurances and the put enough money in the bank or whatever, or the build your muscles up so you look super fit, so your partner won't leave you or something. You know, all these things are kind of control delusions or whatever. So part is mind, and then another part is is mindfulness, awareness of things. I was using practices as well. So the Katsugan or Tai Chi, I'm using ways to help the body to process emotion, to let go. So there's mind and body, I guess, in that.
Are you in a relationship now?
Not at the moment, no. But we'll say this. But relationship, there's relationship with lots and lots and lots and lots of people. Yeah, we think of relationship always as this one person in a little stereotype thing. Oh yeah, I'm, and we come home and sit on the sofa and watch TV together and yawn, and whatever. But maybe that can happen again. Yeah, I just feel my way through this. But at the same time, there's a feeling of heart connection and love for lots of people on some level, and real care and a feeling of being held in all these cords going out. Yes, I feel in relationship to people, and I talk on the phone to China and India and Italy and Norway and Switzerland. Yeah.
Tell us about where all the love in your life comes from and how that sustains you in your wellness.
It's a good one, because when you were saying earlier about the practices for someone if they're mental health or whatever, mindfulness on its own is tricky, and I think there's awareness of that, because this is not generally, unless you're very, very strong, it's not a state of being a lone samurai, go in there and face all the demons, sit there and do all that. That isn't, I don't think that's relevant for most people until you have more strength. What is relevant is connection, which is what you're talking about now. So for me, a kind of a psychosis event is simply a person drifting off from the mass. So it's like, I have this image, I tell people the ocean, pile of little boats, every person sitting on their own little boat, the boats are all tied together. Big rafts can move together, and that creates some capacity for us humans to survive in this thing. If you take any of those people, cut all the ropes, let them drift off, they're floating in this big thing, anyone will lose it. Okay, finish. Yeah, unless they've got some real training and connection with someone who's already settled and got a deeper feeling of relaxed with being in emptiness in this thing. So the first thing, so when someone's like that, what I want to do is get a rope to them, tie them to me, I'm tied to everyone else, and then get more ropes. and bring them in. And that's to bring someone back into the matrix that we're in here, and then do that.
So you want to bring them back to the matrix as opposed to liberate them from the matrix?
It's interesting to think about that. I'd say first stage, yeah. I don't. I mean, we're saying. Yeah, for the reality. I'm not being heady and philosophical. The reality. So if you whether it's in the room with me now or plunked on Zoom or something, and someone connects in, then I want to reconnect the person. I'll connect the person with me, so my body will connect with them, whatever state they're in. That means I go into their state. I've got to hold it. We get a connection there, and then we're able to relate. So yes, there is a human field, which is where humans function in with bodies and here. Nothing to do with samsara or out of that, if you're saying this, yeah, matrix in terms of samsara is this mental world of attachments and desire, and not in your center, which is saying the relationship pulls you out of your nirvana is to come home to your inner self, and you're pulled out of that by the mind desires and aversions to things and confusions.
So you'd like to pull people out of their minds and back into centeredness and human connection.
Yeah, and present moment now. And that works. And then from that state, you can bear and be with the pain. It doesn't mean the pain's gone, but the reason that you have some problem is because there is the reason people have a difficulty is because there is some problem with the reality of being in this state, whether that happened, and it might have happened really early on in life or later, whatever. But at that moment, the person is not fully in their body, not feeling their emotional self. The mind is not quiet. The heart is not connected to itself. And so if all those come back in, the original problem is still there, but there's capacity to be with it, certainly while being held and supported. And there's no psychosis then.
There's no psychosis. What?
No, I don't like this word psychosis. It means it means extreme mental illness, and then you kind of other the people and disconnect them and say, okay, this is a flawed human being and something. But but there is a reasonable state to consider undesirable, where someone is so emotionally destabilized that the thinking mind has hit the roof and is not able to function, and the system is just spiraling. So the actual organic chemistry of the whole body is going out of balance, and the person can't function. So there is an extreme destabilized state, and no one is being spiritual. Let's just clear this thing. Sorry. So no one is in a spirit. It's not a spiritual state. That.
Okay, but it's a chaotic state of unbearable
mess.
Yeah,
unbearable suffering, and so the way out of that is to come to a calm state, slow it down, come to present. If the person's very tired, they need to rest, get more resources in, and then you can start to be with the pain. You know, so someone quoted me wrong just now in something I wrote, and they what I say, the problem with the diagnosis thing, you diagnose someone with something, it looks functional from the doctor's side, because they can then identify the problem and treat it in some sense of theirs. But in actual practice, for me, what happens is you diagnose something from someone, and then forget the pain that's underneath there and causing that, and then happily ignore that and just treat the diagnosis and these symptoms. Whereas I'm interested in helping people come to the pain. Yes, my not my story, but okay, my brother died when I was 6 or something, or my parents split up or something, or I was raped or something, or abused or something. Yeah, the reality that's under this, or the parents didn't know what being a parent was, and so there was just this unpleasant box to live in with them.
Yes, there's a movement now to be cognizant and sensitive to the background trauma that precipitated the release of all this energy and chaos, and emotional dysregulation. It's called being trauma informed. But we have 2 minutes now. Can you share something with us that you feel is important for the listeners that you haven't said yet?
Okay. Wow. Okay, so if I look at what came out on with my websites, the message I have is that okay, life gives you some kind of pain or problems or different things, and that's just what it is. But and then we can follow on with that and just carry on in going to some kind of misery, or we can choose to make a journey. And so this for me is an important thing. It's almost like a sort of like a spiritual wake-up moment, where you decide, okay, this is my start. I've got this sort of mountain of manure perhaps in my living room, and it's causing a mess here, and I've got to work now, and it might take the rest of my life, and I've got to shovel this out and spread it on the fields in the garden and turn that into a beautiful fertile field which can grow, and turn that into fertility, which can grow something beautiful.